eBay, the home of scams, knockoffs, and, sometimes, rare equipment you can't seem to find anywhere else, like professional-grade CRTs. While it's always best to test a monitor in person and bring it home yourself, that's not always an option. This video is my top 5 tips for anyone buying or even selling an RGB monitor online. Now that the manufacturing of CRT displays has ended, and most studios have already sent their production monitors to recycling centers, finding professional-grade CRTs has become much harder. In fact, I'd say any quality CRT is getting much harder to find. That includes any of the Sony BVM and PVM monitors, as well as ones from JVC, Ikogami, NEC, and Mitsubishi. All are excellent choices and all hard to find. For many of us, the only way to track one down is buying one sight unseen and having it shipped, which could be a disaster. So here's some tips from things that I've learned over the years, both buying and selling RGB monitors online, that hopefully might help you out as well. Number 5, be respectful. I'm sure some people watching this might be surprised to hear me say that, but seriously, think about what you're buying. A 10 to 30-year-old electronics device that's about to be tossed onto a truck and shipped. Even if the seller did absolutely everything right, there's still a chance the monitor would show up dead. Buyers are usually protected by this, so if this happens, just work with the seller to file an insurance claim, and more on claims later. Also, it's my opinion that if the monitor lasts a month then dies, that's just the gamble of buying something old and used. Unless you think the seller intentionally hid a problem from you, I'd just assume it was bad luck. Now I know that's definitely not what people would want to hear, especially if you just lost some money, but put yourself in an honest seller's position. Lastly, try and be respectful of people's time. I think it's completely fair to ask for all the things that we talk about in this video, but I remember even back in the days of selling things in the newspaper, if somebody ever had a million questions to ask, generally speaking, they were never going to buy that item anyway, and I've learned to just stop responding to people like that. So even if you really mean it honestly, just be respectful of people's time and try and remember that the retro gaming scene is filled with so many awesome people, and it really is just a tiny percentage of people that are looking to take advantage of you. Number 4, red flags. Is someone out there selling something at a price that's too good to be true? Do you think you've just found a hidden gem and the seller isn't aware that it's actually worth something? If so, that's probably a scam, a broken monitor, or just a mistake. Maybe it's worth looking into, but keep your expectations low. What about the opposite? Do you see a monitor that usually sells for $1,500 listed as $4,000? It's most likely not new old stock, just a normal monitor sold by a scalper. See, sometimes sellers think if they list something at a super high price, someone will eventually buy it. Sadly, this usually works too. I've seen many Super Nintendos sold as rare for $500, and some poor sucker eventually falls for it. It's a weird position to be in, because you know you're getting ripped off, but what if this is the monitor you've always wanted, and you finally have the cash saved up? Unfortunately, I don't have any good solution for this. I just want to remind everybody that every time you agree to pay a scalper's inflated price, you just give them the power to continue to do so and continue to rip off other people. Number 3, research the seller. Usually people who sell in niche markets become known very quickly. If someone's selling monitors at inflated prices, or worse, listing broken equipment as working, the word will spread. Online selling makes things a bit more complicated, as it's not too hard to change an eBay and PayPal account, but you should always be wary of new eBay sellers anyway. Either way, always read the feedback, and make sure feedback that you're reading is for monitors. A common scam is to sell a bunch of cheap little things to gain good feedback, then start listing the high-dollar scam items. Finally, find any listed info about the seller and do a search for them. Chances are you'll find their reputation, good or bad, very quickly. Number 2, get good videos. Make sure there's pictures and video of the exact monitor you're buying, not just generic pictures. We're living in a time where practically every device around us has a camera in it, So there's absolutely no excuse for someone to sell an expensive monitor without taking a few moments to upload a video from their cell phone. Here's specifically what you're looking for: a quick video or pictures of the condition of the exact monitor that's being sold. A video of the monitor as it powers up with a console already plugged into it and powered on. This way you could hear how loud it is and possibly even determine if it'll need some work right away. It'll also weed out the scalpers that don't even realize some monitors need an input card for them to work. Basically, if they can't get it working to test in a video, you don't want it. Next, you'll want a video panning across the screen so you could check for tube quality and burn-in. If you're a seller with a good camera, use this to stand out from the rest. You don't need a fancy camera though. Just a basic cell phone recording at 60 frames per second should show major issues like burn-in or a dead color. For monitors like BVMs that track usage, make sure to get a picture of the status screen showing exactly how many hours of use the monitor has. As a buyer, all of those videos would be enough for me, but as someone who sold a few RGB monitors, I'd personally go above and beyond. I'd take video of the 240p test suite showing color bars, the solid white screen, and the grid, just so people get a sense of any issues and really know what to expect. Please keep in mind, we're talking about less than 5 minutes worth of work here, so in my opinion, sellers should just be doing this automatically before even listing a monitor. Number 1, receiving the monitor. Once you've made the decision to purchase a monitor, there's a few different ways to receive it, and each one all have the potential of ending badly. First and foremost, whenever possible, you'd want to check out that monitor in person, but even that has its own shortcomings and things that you'd need to watch out for. I went to an electronics recycling center in Brooklyn, and they agreed to sell me a monitor for $400. I came back with a car the next day, and they changed the price to $800, and then wanted to raise it again. Now that's just about the oldest trick in the book. Make somebody do something like rent a car, and then when they show up, jack the price up, thinking you could say something like, well, you already spent the money and took the time to be here, what's just a few $100 more? Don't fall for that crap. And to be perfectly honest, that recycling center has a terrible reputation and years of treating people like this. So in all honesty, that was my fault for ever even thinking I could have walked away from there with a fair deal. It's not just buyers that need to watch out though, as that scam works both ways. A common scenario you might run into is for people within reasonable driving distance to meet halfway. When they arrive, the buyer might hold up half the cash they agreed on and say, well, you drove all this way and I'm ready to take it off your hands. You wouldn't want to drive all the way back without selling it, would you? That's a rough one, but luckily eBay users have the easiest time handling this, as you can win an eBay auction without paying. This enters both parties into a contract without worrying about exchanging money. This obviously won't stop the scam from happening, but at least you could refuse the sale and open a case against the buyer after it happens. Using Craigslist or other online sites like OfferUp is a bit trickier, and those are always filled with scammers wanting to send someone to pick up the item and deliver you a bank check. I really hope none of you would fall for that, but what about being protected during an honest sale? From a buyer's point of view, I'm pretty sure that transactions through PayPal, Venmo, or others would allow you to be protected as well. So if you prepay for an item and then show up and the seller turns out to do a bait and switch, you should be able to just leave, open up a case, and get your money right back. Basically though, as long as a price is locked in before meeting, both the buyer and seller can be protected. Now, while it would be nice to always pick up your monitor in person, the reality is most people are going to have to end up shipping. And as a buyer, there's not much you could do to protect yourself, but there are a few tips I can give you. The first is one that I learned quite a long time ago when I bought my first CRT online, a Luva Articos. And that's have it shipped to and from freight centers. That means that the seller would have to drive it directly to a freight drop-off, and then you would have to find a freight location somewhat close to you and pick it up directly there. This skips all of the local delivery drivers, and this is where so many problems occur. Because if you really think about it, your average local delivery driver is overworked, has to jam a lot into their schedule, and carries mostly medium to light boxes. So when they find that one giant heavy box, It's just not easy for them to deal with it, and all potential for damage occurs. So just by cutting it right off and going to the freight center eliminates so much of that. And when I used to do that, they were usually very nice about letting me do things like unpack it right there in the parking lot and using their dumpsters for the pallet and the boxes and stuff like that, so I didn't have to try to jam a huge thing inside my car. It really ended up working out for the best. And a pallet is another great option for monitors. I would suggest really anything over 25 inches, because if you could pack it properly and strap it to a pallet, there is way less chance of it getting handled improperly, and there's certainly a much less chance of it getting tipped over. So if that's possible, that's a great option. But when you're talking about 20-inch monitors and below, unless you're buying multiple, it would be kind of hard to get them on a pallet. So from a seller's point of view, one thing that you could do, of course, would be to find some good quality packing materials. So I'd suggest checking out a place like Uline, both for their boxes as well as any shipping accessories they might be able to have as well. Some other great tips that were told to me over the years are be extremely careful of the back plastic of PVMs. That's something Pat, the BVM tech, talked a lot about, and how since that's the only plastic part of the monitor, if it falls on the backside, the plastic will actually come forward and crush the neck board and the tube. So that's something you'd want to avoid. I know a few people that also like to ship it tube down, both for center of gravity and because they're able to put a lot more padding on the bottom, creating a really thick buffer between the glass as well as the bezel and the bottom of the box. As long as the monitor is very snug inside and there's lots of packing, you should be okay. Now, I know some of this might seem pretty obvious, but unfortunately I've had a lot of monitors shipped to me that came with damage from sellers that barely packed it at all, threw some bubble wrap or air filler in the box and hoped that was good enough. And to make things worse, usually when that happened, they'll offer something like a $20 refund for a broken bezel. Very frustrating, but that leads me to the next part of this, and make sure that you verified your shipping insurance. One thing to note is you'll want to make sure the shipping insurance is valid. I recently lost over $600 because InsureShip tried everything they could to deny my claim. Wherever you purchase the insurance, ask exactly what they'd need to prove the value, as well as the condition it's in before shipping. This way you can guarantee a payout if the shipper rolls the package down a flight of stairs, something I've sadly witnessed in person. So that's pretty much it. Whenever possible, try and inspect a monitor yourself, and if you don't have the ability to do so, politely ask the seller to go through the very simple steps it takes to get good video and good pictures that show the exact condition the monitor's in. Any reseller worth buying from will probably have all this taken care of anyway, and as long as you've asked politely, any seller that refuses to provide details like this was probably not worth buying from anyway. It's not all doom and gloom though. Over the years I've bought many monitors online, and I even bought a car on eBay once. Overall, whenever there was an abundance of information available about an item, combined with an honest seller, the transaction went well. Hopefully videos like this would help educate people on what to look for, what to stay away from, and when to run the f*** away. Well, that's it for this time. Please remember to subscribe to this channel, and also check out the weekly podcast that keeps everybody in the loop of everything going on in the retro gaming scene. Also, if you want to see more videos like this, please consider signing up for any of the support platforms such as Patreon or Subscribestar, because without your support, none of this work, as well as any of the tremendous amount of behind-the-scenes research, would ever be possible. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.